vacancy for December and January. I was appointed on the 10th of February, took office, and towards the end of February is when I actually became. We had to wait 10 days. The mayor chose not to sign my legislation. So the charter reads that on any appointment, first it was the mayor's appointment. For 45 days she had the opportunity to appoint somebody with council's approval. After those 45 days, for whatever reason, the two parties could not get together. Then became council's responsibility to appoint with a confirmation of council. There was two other opponents, quite qualified people, and I was fortunate enough to get the nod. I think you just need to look at those things that I commented about. You know, you're going to have about 4 or 5, maybe more issues of what you want to change or should be changed.
Can I ask a question?
That's going to be tough.
Please. And I'm going to try and phrase this politically correct.
Sure.
Okay. I just wonder, in your mind, if your feelings as far as the working relationship between council and mayor, if you see any changes that should be made, or everything is just fine the way it is and it should remain constant.
You know, politics is politics, and sometimes it's very ugly and very dirty. But if you ask everybody in this room, everybody on council, every mayor now and in the past, they all want the best for the community. That's the bottom line. We all want the best for our community. We have different ways of getting there. We have different personalities. My problem, and it was back when I was on council before, if you're the mayor and I side with you tonight on a particular issue that's up in front of us, I'm the greatest thing though. You're my buddy. We're friends. I could say yes 99 out of 100 times. That one time I say no to you, you're going to want to take my head off. You're going to want to, I'm your worst enemy all of a sudden. And that's so wrong. We got to remember that we're here for the people. We got to do what's best for them. They can't make it every Tuesday night up to a council meeting or to a committee meeting. Hopefully they like the way I think. If I have a problem, I should go back to them and get their input. And if they're really strong about something and I don't like it, I'm going to represent them. I'm going to go ahead and try to side with them. But I think what happens is when you have what's going on now, and I have to be quite honest, what's going on now, you have to give people an opportunity. And I don't feel I had the opportunity yet to prove myself one way or the other. I've told the mayor, I've told council, there's going to be nights you're going to love me, and there's going to be nights you're going to hate me. That's part of the job. No, but if you're talking about anything changing, I really don't see anything that really needs to be changed. I know it's a strong council charter. The mayor has a big responsibility. I think the biggest problem is for all of us, both sides of the street, is communication. You know, one thing is said in an open meeting, and then something else goes on behind closed doors or behind people's backs. That has to stop. That just has to stop.
Mr. Tina, one question from me is that you were saying, you know, it's a small community, you got here, you know, everyone in council and mayor is for the city. And I understand where the politics, you know, are. But I think that on most decisions, those decisions should be made based on what the community is best for the community, best for what the people. When you get when personalities get into it, they can get to be blown out of proportion. So I think there's like a direct line to that, and it really, you know, we can come from different angles, but it should be always getting to what's the best for the people and the citizens of Richmond Heights.
I agree with you. I agree with you. It's a tough job, you know.
Yes.
You go out there and you try to get elected. So I'm knocking on your door and I'm telling you I'm the greatest guy that you could possibly meet. You got to put me in that position. The minute I get elected, you're called, not you, don't take this personally, no, but the general public will call you and says, hey, I need a favor. you know, my rubbish wasn't picked up, or, you know, my kid needs to cut grass in the summertime, or doggone it, they're racing up and down my street. The mayor can't do much about it, and council can't do much about it. By one person is what I'm trying to say. We need to work together to try to fix those kind of problems. Okay, so the minute I can't help you out, you're gonna say, doggone it, man, I put the guy's sign up, I voted for him, I knocked on doors, I talked to my neighbors, and look at that, the guy can't help. People want what they want, and sometimes they're not very reasonable when they ask for it. They don't understand. That's just what's human nature.
Saying you were not elected when you were appointed. Normally, people who run for elections, like you said, make a campaign promise.
Sure.
What is it that you, or what are your intentions for the remaining part of, your term?
Sure.
What do you plan to do for the city,
Well,
or for the residents, whatever?
right. All I could tell the residents of Ward 2 and of the whole city is that I am here to look out for their best interest. Their best interest becomes my best interest because I'm part of them. I don't owe nobody anything, favors. I've had my time. I enjoyed this. I think I have something to offer from my past experience. And my promise is that I'm going to represent you and the residents of Richmond Heights to the best of my ability, and that I don't care who you are or who's knocking on my door on the other side. Right is right in my opinion, and wrong is wrong. And I'm going to try to do that to the best of my ability. That's all I can promise.
Okay, another statement. About a couple of years ago, when the council approved for garbage pickup fund to be taken directly from added to the property tax.
Right.
What would you do if you knew that was going to be a proposal? Would you canvass the people in your ward to find out if that would have an adverse effect on them? Because most of the people paid, like myself, they paid, that cost. So what would you do in a case like that?
You know what happens after a while?
Restate the question a little bit. Just, what was your question again?
The question was, what would he do? Would he canvass the community for a situation like when they had the waste cost attached to our property tax? So my thing was, I was one of the people, I always paid mine. So I'm asking because I had an attitude about it. Would he canvass his community to find out before they voted on it whether or not that's what it was that they wanted?
We were all painted with the same brush.
Yeah, I would certainly want their input, but I think because it was 2-year terms back in the day when I was doing it, now it's a 4-year term. I don't think you expect me to knock on your door on every issue.
No.
You know what I'm saying? That was an important one. That was a very important one. And yes, I probably would canvass the community to find out that their feeling on that. At some point, we don't become a city anymore. It's like a car. I have a buddy of mine. He says, I drive a Mercedes. Wow, good for you, man. That sounds pretty good. That sounds really good. Well, the thing's about 28 years old. Doors are falling off. The antenna's bent. The tires are bald. Yeah, it says Mercedes on the side of the car, but I don't know if that's a Mercedes anymore. You know what I mean? It doesn't have that. We're a city. We don't have a pool. We don't have street lights. We don't have this. We don't have that. That was taken away. There was a reason for all that. If we have the opportunity, if we could replace some of that stuff, let's become a city again with the forward look that our slogan says on our top of our literature. And you know what? It didn't happen overnight, and it's not going to be fixed overnight. It's going to take time. But let's get going in that right direction.
Another question, just for me. When you were in office in 78 and 90, the communication to the mass of the citizen of Richmond Heights, did you guys have some type of communications that you were using in the past? And what communications would you think that would be a good ideal to use going forward?
That's a good question for me, I believe. When I was on council, I was just talking to a customer of mine today about that. I says, I didn't know what this thing was 6 months ago. My grandkids do. You know, my grandkids, my kids, they sit upside down on the sofa and they punch it all up. The comment I made to the person who went back in the day when I was on council, the poor reporters sat out in these meetings, the meetings going on forever, and half the time it didn't make any sense, and those poor people sat out there and tried to make heads or tails out of it. At the end of the meeting, they'd run up to us and try to get a quote or get a comment from one of us. They'd write it down on their pad. 2 days later, it might show up in the paper. It might have been right, it might have been wrong of what they wrote. Boy, I tell you what, I got on council just 2 months ago, or whatever it's been now. These people are out there with their computers, and it's videotaped, and it's out there before the meeting's over. And that's good for the general public, I guess, but it's also scary that it has to be reported correctly. And when you just take a sentence out of what I said all night, you can make that sound good, and you can make that sound bad. Depends on which way you want to write it. This poor lady's trying like heck to do it, and I understand the job you have. But yeah, it's a new era. I mean, it's a new time. It really, truly is. It's almost scary because you better make sure your tie matches your shirt when you show it to me. Otherwise, they're going to talk about it.
Well, my question, I mean,
Yeah,
if I can,
I guess that's
expand on my
the
question
question.
is, how do we reach, the general public of Richmond, be inclusive of council meetings and, public records of council?
The newsletter that we have is great. I know that comes out 2-3 times a year. That's really been a great tool for the city. With emails and with electronics, they could read it as soon as possible. I know everybody, I heard a lady last week says, I don't have a computer. I guess I didn't have one 2 months ago either, The bulletin boards are great out front. The phone lines, I understand we have phone lines that you could call the city and find out what's going on. The general public, you go to McDonald's and you sit there with the guys, the old timers, and they talk about, what's wrong with everything, and everything is wrong. I don't care if you're talking government, federal government, or city politics. They're all saying back in the day when I was there, when I was doing it. They get the wrong information. Most people get the wrong facts about stuff, and they run with it. There's little words in statements and newspaper articles that, boy, you sit there and says, gee whiz, the person's getting paid without leave or with leave or whatever that saying is. They just run with it, but they need to find out. It's their responsibility too. We're all here together, but you got to help yourself a little bit too to find out what's going on in the world. So yeah, it's a lot bigger than I am.
Councilman, in your opinion, is there any changes to the charter that you see that should be made?
There's little, I've sat in the last 2 meetings, portions of it, and there's some good points about all of it. There's nothing that jumps out at me. It truly doesn't. It's worked for a long time. It's not perfect. There's some grammar in there that needs to be cleaned up. There's some references, but nothing, and I would love to say, here's something on page 12, take a look at this and look at it hard. I don't see anything that jumps out at me and says, fix me. Doesn't mean that there isn't things that you guys shouldn't fix, but nothing that's just, nothing that is so earth-shattering that I can't wait to tell you about it.
We don't have any more questions for Councilman Team. Thank you for.
Hey, thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate it.
We appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Yeah, I'll get this. I'll get my brief.
This time we'll ask Councilor Juanita Lewis to join us. Excuse me.
My name is Juanita Lewis. I live a country lane on side the bluffs. which people think that folks in the bluffs think they're all that, but yeah, I lived in Richmond Heights for almost 10 years. My husband, we run a pest control business. Lewis Exterminating, they don't stay where we spray.
All right.
So I'm not sure just why I'm here, but I'm here.
Well, we're inviting the department heads in Richmond Heights and council, and council persons, just to sit down with us. We're looking at the charter review for the city of Richmond Heights, and I think it's every 5 years. They put a committee together of independent citizens to sit down and review it. And basically how we get a lot of information is that we sit down and talk to the individuals. But right now it's information gathering. And once we get all our information, then we'll, as a group, sit together and review the charter, go through it by each line and see if there's any changes, things that need to stay, any wording. And so we invited you as being a guest, so just feel free. You're a newly elected council person,
Yes.
and you were elected in November of 2013. When did you take office?
December.
December 1st. Okay. Do you think that was enough time at December 1st to come in office behind the individual that you replaced to get you started into council?
I just don't want to take off.
Well, yeah, I think that's how it works, you know. So, but I'm still observant and I'm still learning some things. So I've been pretty much quiet for the last 3 months. But,
And can you elaborate on your observations?
that things that I've observed.
Yes, just observe. You know.
Well, I observed.
Co-chair.
Well,
You know, it's just been some things that I see that, well, like you say with the charter, some things I see it's not being followed as far as with the charter says, as far as with the mayor and council. But, you know, we've been basically working on the budget, so there haven't been a lot, you know, and I observed the vacancy that had to be filled. I think that was kind of unfair, you know, how it was filled. As far as the mayor's time, because she had elected 2 people and her time ran out before she, you know, we could go there.
and that's one of the items in the charter, that the mayor has 45 days, and then it moves over to the council. I was looking at some of the other municipalities, and some of the other municipalities have it where the council has 45 days, and then the mayor has 45 days if they can't find the mayor.
So ours is reversed.
Yes, ours is reversing that, so that's what our charter says, some of the other charters.
Yeah. Well, ours says the mayor has 45
Yes.
days.
Yes.
Then after that, it's up to council.
Yes. You want to have any questions for?
Well, forgive my ignorance, but could you please explain to me what, excuse me, the council at large is, what the position actually is, and forgive me for, again, for my ignorance, but I don't understand it.
Well, it's after you, it's over the whole city. You know, each ward has its own council, but it's something, I guess, if your council, a ward council can't handle, then it falls with the council at large. So it's the council for the entire city, and there's 2 council at large.
So you're council for the council.
Yes.
Okay, that's good, thank you.
Yeah, very good.
I'm glad you said that. I wasn't sure about it.
A personal question, any relation to Fannie Lewis?
No.
Just checking.
And I'm Lewis by marriage, so I'm not sure. I don't think so, no.
My question is, read the charter?
Yes.
Okay. And that's the question, was there anything that you read that you think you need for us to look at for considerable or possible change in the future?
No, I had looked at, well, you know, I know why they have 3 readings for, when the ordinance is produced, but a lot of the cities are going with 2 readings now. So, you know, I had mentioned it to someone, and they were like, well, it's because of some of the residents, 2 readings, they might not get to hear, you know, what the legislation is, so they have 3 readings, so everybody gets a chance to hear. So, but, you know, that's my opinion. I would go to 2 readings, my opinion. 3 seems like and I didn't see anything else, but, you know, I just see that there's some things in there that need to be enforced, that we're not, you know, following completely.
Do you have any opinion on the emergency provisions that they use in council?
No, I guess that's necessary.
Do you think that, do you have any idea whether they're complying with the rules or not? They do emergency
Council,
legislation.
we haven't really had any emergencies legislation. No, we've never had. Like I said, we basically been following, you know, been working on the budget, the 2014 budget.
And how's that process proceeding as far as with the budget?
Oh, we're done,
You done?
right? Yeah, we're done. Hallelujah.
Good. Now we can address other
Right, we
business
can
for the
move
city.
forward, we can
forward.
move forward. Right.
Any more questions for?
Yes, I have a question.
Sure.
You were saying there were some things that weren't being followed?
Well, it's just, I can't, like, right now, it's just some things that, that, you know, we hadn't been completely following.
Okay.
I have to go look at the charter, but when I was
So
reading,
you're
I'm
saying,
like, we
you're
haven't
saying
been,
specific charters?
yeah, just some, yeah.
Okay.
That's good.
Okay.
You have a vote like all the other council people in wards too, right? When there's something presented, you have a vote.
Yes.
Okay.
Are there any other questions for Councilor Large Lewis? Ms. Lewis, we want to thank you for your input.
Thank you.
It was very appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Get off the hot seat now.
Bring food next time.
And drink.
I guess at this time, we can pull out our charter and pick up where we left off last week.
Article 6, was it?
Article 6, we was at the administrative departments, boards, and commissions, section 1. I think that's on page 13.
I think there was a question on the director of law, if there should be at least 5 years of general.
That's section 2.
Section 2.
Section 2. I think that's in the minutes. That's what he said.
make the note that.
There, wait a minute,
Mr. Hunt said
right,
5
in the
years.
minutes, there was no time. It just stated
That he should be
that
attorney.
it should be,
Yeah,
right,
and that's what it says here on A.
that the
Appointment
11th time.
shall be an attorney at law. Duly admitted to the practice of law before the courts of state law. And
Should have 5 years.
5
general
years.
education.
5 years experience.
Yeah.
Experience or
at least
practice.
5 years of, yeah.
You don't want somebody coming in here, even if he's 50 years old, that he just passed the bar. You don't want that.
I was a little, just, I know we're reviewing it, we're going over it, but I was a little concerned that this has been like this forever. It hasn't been an issue. And now it's like all of the, I think you give the people who are interviewing some responsibility to make good judgment, but all of a sudden, we're changing everything now to have these criterias with pedigrees, with time, that has never been written or stated before. And there didn't seem to be issues.
And that's well taken, but if we all sit and understand that we're just gathering information, nothing is in concrete, these are discussions, and I think
Okay.
discussions, yeah,
And that's what I wanted to put on the
Yes.
table about that particular piece
Yes.
that we're doing.
I think these discussions are valuable, and once we start gathering, a lot of information out here, some things are gonna go at the top of the board, and some are gonna go down at the bottom. That's gonna be based on all the communication decisions that we make. So these are all discussions, and we're taking not recommendations, but we listen to each person that sits with us to speak, and taking into account their conversation, communication with us.
Yeah, it's an information hunt,
Yes.
and,
Yes.
and just like Mr. Lentine brought out,
Is that how the commission had to-
it's an information hunt. Just like Mr. Lentine brought out, at the end of the day, everything, there's certain things that will fly and won't fly in our community, so that'll be up to us to see what comes up for a vote. But right now, we want as much information as we can and digest it at a later date as we continue talking. Mhm.
Yes, absolutely.
There's another point on paragraph A that I want to throw out. It requires a majority of the members of council for the appointment.
I think at some point in time, we need to figure out as a whole what we think, what kind of powers we think the mayor should have in appointing certain department heads.
Right.
How much authority should we put upon the mayor?
In what section?
With council, and that's what we look at the charter,
Section 2, paragraph A, says majority.
Yeah, and in a lot of cases, this is in conflict with some of the other articles and sections, because ordinarily there's a requirement of 5/7,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Versus this says majority.
And you have the same thing down in section 3, bottom of the page, the last line. Again, it repeats majority.
And as we, Richard brings up, as we go through the charter, we're gonna see a majority of council, and we're also gonna see the number 5. So, that's just for our viewing for right now. Okay. Well, Tell me that you want to discuss A, Will Bailey,
Well,
Director of Finance.
actually, it's clean except for that majority. When you start controlling the mayor, the question is whether you should be controlling the mayor or not.
Page 14. We have the general duties of the Director of Finance.
When's he bringing it in?
Pardon me?
When is he bringing it
The Director of Finance is probably going to be in 2 weeks, maybe 2 or 3 weeks. So this might be, that's a bit, maybe we should hold the Director of Finance, looking at the finance, until we talk to the Director. And that's probably in 2 or 3 weeks.
Just because of his reasons, people we got one.
Because he was involved with the budget. Yeah, he was involved with the budget, so we pushed him out. And now that the budget is done, we'll put some dates together and see if we can invite him to come
Just
forward.
basically just with the scope or
Yes.
responsibilities.
Mhm.
So,
Since we have a budget now, it might be nice to get it next week.
Next week, the week after would be good, because next week, we've invited Don Lazar, the Service Director. We had him, we talked to him 2 weeks ago, and he decided he would come on the 25th, and Councilman Donald Toole. So I'm thinking April 1st, we can invite the Finance Director. So I would say, section 3, let's just hold section 3, that's pertaining to the Finance Director until April 1st. So I'd like to move to section 4, the Department of Public Safety. It says to do with the police, fire. And we have sit down and interview the fire chief and the police chief.
The one question on that is whether or not we want the, both police chief and fire chief to be on civil service, where the mayor has no control over them. You know, they are employees of the city. Whether the chiefs or department head, I don't think makes any difference. A specific line on
There is a line.
it says it reverts to the civil service status held by
That's right. Right, that's
probationary period.
You're in,
That,
are you section 4?
it's under C.
see right there.
Yeah.
Section 4 under C.
And I think this, I think we talked about this. It dates back to 1959, with the original charter. It's not been changed since.
Well, I'm not necessarily opposed to the probationary terms.
Yeah.
And this or the, nor even that it revert to the civil service status if he's not, not being appointed, as not being maintained as the police chief. But the police chief, even Cleveland, is at the will of the mayor. And I don't think we should have a police chief or a fire chief that's at any higher status than the city of Cleveland.
Okay.
That actually goes to the last sentence in 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth paragraph down, last sentence, which says after service of the probationary period, he or she may only be removed from office for cause under civil service rules and regulations.
Cause is so broad. I mean,
In the
most
regulations too.
attorneys, yeah, don't.
Mr. Chair, if I might, just as a point of information, I suppose, as an order, it creates certain due process rights once you become part of the civil service protection. So it is not strictly an at-will situation.
Now that you just confused me. You said, can you say that again?
Yes.
Just not as an attorney, as a
Yes.
layman.
Well, that's our job, you know. The civil service protection, well, in contrast with some communities where the fire chief and police chief serve as an at-will position. So that if the mayor says, today I don't like you, I want somebody else. Civil service protection means there has to be a hearing, the mayor would have to present reasons, and the Civil Service Commission would have to determine if in fact there was legitimate cause for the determination to make a termination of the fire chief. So that means the Civil Service Commission could in fact overrule the mayor's determination. So there's a level of protection, but civil service employees in general get that protection when they come under the purview of the civil service laws.
And under the civil service laws is that our police, fire, and what,
Sure.
postal,
That is all in the city of Richmond, right?
City of
Richmond Fire. But all county employees are protected by, most are protected by civil service. Although the new county charter has changed a lot of that. The city of Cleveland, almost all employees are civil service protected. All the way up to the chief. The chiefs in police and fire are not, and the directors are not. But commissioners on down are all protected.
now the city of, well, under the Carroll County Charter, when the sheriff, he was at the will of the county government.
Correct.
The executive.
Okay, the executive.
But if the mayor were to show, here's pure insubordination, here's pure theft, we need to get rid of this person.
I can't see too many civil service commissions
Yeah.
not doing
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
Not upholding or finding that there's cause.
That's right.
And then the employees, if they lose at the Civil Service Commission level, they have the opportunity to appeal to common police court. And the common police court decides it on the record made in front of the Civil Service Commission. It's not a new trial or anything else. It's a review of what the Civil Service Commission did.
And the basic case that's been established, that's,
I might note the commission still retains the right to override that decision made by the executive, in this case, the mayor at the county level, the county executive. So there is a due process that protects every civil servant from the caprice or whim And most of this was established a long time ago to
Mhm.
protect people from political influence.
That's right.
So that a fire chief who happened to be friends with the former mayor can't be put in a position of paying a price for that.
Can I ask another question? And again, as a layman, professionally speaking, I've hired and terminated a lot of people in my lifetime through my business careers. I've never had anybody on a one-year probationary period. My question to you is whether other municipalities that you deal with or anything, is this a constant feature of 1 year?
Yes.
Because if I didn't...
And that's my experience as well.
Okay.
But remember, there's a trade-off. You want, civil service protection limits the executive's complete authority. So the trade-off is you create this 1 year period of time so that before that protection,
I
the
had a
holy
funny
water
feeling
comes
you were
down
going
on
to
them.
say that, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, all right,
So it's a little bit of a trade-off.
okay.
Yeah. We're not cutting it.
If something like that be changed, I don't think it would affect people who were already in office because they're hired under the other condition.
I think that's right. I don't think you can strip it away.
It'd be difficult to strip it away.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't take away something that was given to them already.
So like a grandfather's clause.
Yes.
Grandfather's
Yeah.
The government never does that.
Right.
If we move down to the fire chief, the last paragraph. I think we, not the fire chief, I think the police chief brought this to our attention, and one of his concerns was that he only had one lieutenant under him, and he had about 3 or 4 sergeants, and he was asking that the sergeants of the municipality be able to take the civil service test to, you know, be interviewed for being police chief. So,
But only within the city.
within the city.
Yeah, that only applies to the city.
To the city, yes.
Police
Right,
officers.
to the police in the city.
They're already here.
Right.
Well, you know, that also goes to that other paragraph that says that they're removed from the job of police chief, or revert back to their civil service job. And that's not so bad. Although I'm not so sure you're gonna have a very good employee that's been promoted and had to remain it back.
But he was a sergeant and became police chief.
You know,
But
that's a
lieutenant,
problem
yeah.
with that.
Yeah, that's a good thought.
But someone, well, during this conversation the last time, I don't know, maybe it was you or Stephanie, I can't remember, said, why would we want to establish dual, you know, rules? Because if we were to go outside, we'd be looking for a lieutenant.
Right, absolutely.
And it's double standards, but internally, he feels confident that the sergeants could fit or should be given consideration
Didn't he
for
say something to the effect that he doesn't,
a chief slot.
he doesn't have a whole lot of lieutenants, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah,
He's
it's
got one,
lieutenant.
but he has more sergeants, but he doesn't promote to a lieutenant position. He promotes them to a sergeant position.
Right.
Well, you
Wasn't it something to that
You
effect? He
would
said something like
promote-
that?
to lieutenant if there was an opening.
Yes.
Right now, he has one.
He is one.
His sergeant.
Okay, so that's the reason why he has more sergeants than lieutenants, because he only has one lieutenant position?
The sergeants are, they are in charge of the shift.
He's also saying the sergeants are qualified,
Right,
okay?
right,
And they're
within the
qualified.
city.
within the city. But when you get outside the city, you don't know whether they're qualified or not, but they're coming in at least as a lieutenant,
Right.
okay? And that's in hopes that they, because of being a lieutenant outside, they receive the same experience.
Sure.
That was one of the questions that I asked, and my understanding was that due to budget cuts, that he came in and eliminated some positions, but he feels that people who stay should have an opportunity to be promoted.
And I think he was pertaining to that he just had one lieutenant who would be the only person
Qualified.
who qualified.
In terms of positions and
Position,
office
yes.
held, right, lieutenant, right?
Yeah.
But I would like to see how, given the responsibilities that they have now, how do they stack up to the lieutenant? And how do they stack up to the lieutenants external of the city?
Good question.
You know, if,
I may, Mr. Chair, the other thing that we see in some municipalities, mostly larger ones, but not only do you have lieutenants, but you have captains,
Yes.
which are above lieutenants, and you have assistant chiefs, and then you have chiefs.
Yes, you do.
So,
And I think if we're gonna look at that, we should look at municipalities of our size.
and our sergeants do what, generally, I think what lieutenants do in a lot of departments.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll stop right here at section 4. And I think we'll be right at E, section 4E. Is division building and zoning.
okay.
Okay. And at this moment, I'll ask, are any questions from anyone in the audience? Has a question, sir? Yes, Mr.
You know, it's not a question, but after listening to my colleague talk about the at-large position, that was one of my pet peeves too. Everybody seems to know their ward council person. When there's a problem, your rubbish isn't picked up, or you're speeding down the street, you call up City Hall and says, who's my councilman? And they'll say, where do you live? And they'll say, oh, that's Mr. Lentine, or that's Mr. So-and-so. They need to give out the councilman at large's phone number also, and I'll tell you why. They have the same powers as we do. They have a little tougher getting elected because they have to canvass the whole city to get elected. But once they're on there, a lot of the general public seems to forget about them. And as she knows, I'm sure her phone rings just as much as probably mine does, and they need to get that out through the city. That let's include those two people also. She has the same powers as the rest of us do. I call City Hall, who's my councilman? I don't hear about the at-large people at all, or even the president of council as far as that goes. So all I hear is your
How
word.
many calls do you get?
I tell you what, I haven't gotten too many so far. I've gotten about 5 or 6 so far since I've been on here, but I used to back in the day.
It's winter.
Back at the time, I used to get some beauties.
It almost sounds like they had a routine. And council, each member of council takes a week. They take all the calls for a week.
Yeah.
You know, 5 that, you've
Yeah.
been on now for 2.5 months, or 2
Yeah.
months.
Yeah.
You know, so that's only 5 calls.
Well, the thing is that they want somebody that lives in their area, and they can relate to whatever their problems are. But the general problems are there, and the at-large person needs to.
And what can you do about the power being off?
Yeah. Thank you.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, you're really true. You know what? And I know you guys have been here a long time.
No.
I had a real funny phone call back in the day. A fellow called me up and says, "Are you my councilman?" Well, with that, I don't know if I am. If you live in Orange County, California, I am not your councilman. And I said, "Well, who are you and where do you live?" This was before caller ID and all this other great technology that we have. And he says, "I don't have to tell you that." And I said, well, that's true, and I probably don't have to talk to you either, okay? But I said, let's assume I am your councilman, let's cut to the chase and say I am. And he says, are you gonna do my taxes? And I said, sir, I said, trust me when I tell you, you don't want me doing your taxes. I don't want myself doing my taxes. They didn't want to hear the answer. The answer was that Richmond Heights, Highland Heights, I believe South Euclid, Livers, we belong to a group, a consortium, that does general tax work, prepare your taxes. If it's a simple form and you don't have a whole lot going on, they'll do it. Thing is, they were doing it in Highland Heights, their community center. But our residents were allowed to go there. And I told him that, and he didn't want to hear that. He thought I was passing the buck. But what I'm saying is that, yeah, we get a lot of phone calls, and some of them are some real beauties.
I just want to ask you two questions.
Yeah.
One, do you think your volume is low because of the winter, and everybody pick up in the spring and the summer with animals or whatever? Thinking that might
Probably
turn
so.
around.
I think mine are low right now because I just got on, and a lot of people don't even know I'm here yet.
And my second question is, if I can't reach my council person, I can call Mrs. Lewis.
Or Mr.
Oh, Mr. Roach, okay, that's right.
Yeah, get those
But
guys involved
I
too.
try to indicate,
I'm sorry,
any
Councilman.
residents, they have 5 representatives they can call. So you I think we have call your all ward
Oh,
person,
uh,
phone numbers in that. Myself, president of council.
Everybody should be
Or
involved.
the mayors.
Okay, well, there, okay.
Or the mayors.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Any more questions for me? Yes,
That it?
yes.
Okay, I make a motion that we adjourn.
All right, the second? Second. Was been moved and seconded that this meeting be adjourned.